Welcome boys and girls, Costin here with a discussion about some of the most broken legendary lords in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. Legendary lords that really trivialize the game and also break its systems in the process. So starting at number 5, we have Orion of the Wood Elves. Not necessarily a great legendary lord himself in terms of his combat ability or his special skill line. But what makes Orion ridiculous is the fact that he has faction effects that give him essentially unlimited armies. So first off, he gets a minus 8% upkeep for each war he's in, and minus 4% for every single army that he has. So basically, if you're at war with enough factions as Orion, you will literally have 0 upkeep. Not only do you remove all upkeep from units inherently, but you also remove any kind of upkeep you might have from supply lines. That is pretty ridiculous. On top of that, he also gets a cooldown reduction when he is during a wild hunt. He gets a cooldown reduction for Deep Root's teleportation, so he can actually go and fight the war that he has declared. He also replenishes his campaign movement range for all characters after raising a settlement. Then he gets melee attack, charge bonus, speed for himself. But that combination is ridiculous. Here's, however, where things do break down for the Wood Elves, because you might think you need to actually at least discover factions in order to pull it off, but you actually do not need to discover factions in order to pull it off. So one of the things you can do as Orion very, very damn quickly in a campaign is just go to a bunch of your initial factions that are near you and declare war on them, basically. That will give you a couple of declarations of war against various factions. But then we have a bit of technology, and this is where things get absurdly broken for Orion. See, you can get, in 5 turns, you can get Wisdom of the Eagle Lords. It's supposed to have some kind of downside that's like, oh, it will make people aware of you. But this is the critical part. It gives you vision across all of the trees around the map. And since factions are not going to march across the map to attack you, it means that you can declare war on so many different factions that it's very easy to maximize that upkeep reduction. Like, you can get vision from Lustria, Nehekara, Cathay even, Empire, etc. with that bit of technology. So it's really the combination of this upkeep benefit combined with Deep Root teleportation and the kind of vision that Wood Elves can get across the map with the special trees they have that makes Orion ridiculous. And really, the only limiting factor in this campaign is recruitment capacity and just how long trees take to get going, but all the same, he has a bunch of benefits in terms of recruitment as well, or at least he can get local recruitment capacity +2. In fact, that might be the best usage of Orion. Just pump out infinite armies and use him to just recruit units. Yes, Orion is absurd, and no, Creative Assembly did not necessarily think this through. At number 4, we have Lord Aislinn of the High Elves. And this campaign is broken in bad ways as well, not just in terms of having a great deal of power. For instance, in order to win your campaign, you need to unlock all of these dragon ships, which is pretty annoying given the sheer amount of Asura domination that you need to get. That's a frustrating thing. On top of that, having certain buildings locked by domination, also a frustrating system. Creative Assembly really didn't handle this campaign well. But it's also broken in the sense that you can revive factions if they're dead, or at least the AI version of Aislinn can. At least that's the complaint I've heard. But here's where it is ridiculous. You've got these consult leaders ability, right? And there's all kinds of nice effects over here that you can use in a campaign. Most of these are pretty clear, like, things like instantly replenishing movement, or all lords and heroes increase rank by 1, all that kind of stuff, right? But then we have Imric. And Imric, through the Dragon's Vision, he gives you replenishment of all movement range for all your lords and all your heroes, faction-wide. And then on top of that, for 8 turns, you also replenish 15% campaign movement range after winning a battle. And the crazy part about that is Aislinn doesn't usually take settlements, right? So what Aislinn does is he generally establishes outposts and gives the settlement to another faction. What this translates into is the idea that Aislinn can just keep going from battle to battle to battle in his campaign. And also, I think like campaign movement range can be bugged if you have enough modifiers, because, you know, mismages give you a campaign movement range, for instance, when you have it available. Obviously, the dragon ships themselves can also give you some kind of benefits in terms of campaign movement range. It's not that you're just at the cap of campaign movement range. You are probably breaking above it. That is a bug, I think. I mean, certainly in certain campaigns, not just Aislinn, but Vampire Coast as well, you can get a ridiculous amount of movement range at sea, especially. And that's where Aislinn is broken. Like, his campaign is not exactly great. It doesn't have great univariety, great mechanics, and a lot of the things he has are absolutely broken. At number 3, we have Maneater. And Maneater's campaign is just one of those ridiculous, nonsensical type campaigns. I mean, I think the idea of the campaign is cool, playing a mercenary faction and actually going around and taking contracts. But the way Creative Assembly decided to do things is not especially conducive towards, let's just say, a good campaign. I mean, he is really fun, don't get me wrong on that, but he is also absurdly broken. And it's not a question of the amount of money he gets, it's the way things are set up. So you can't engage in regular diplomacy, so you can only have like temporary alliances if you have a contract with a particular faction. But there's never any follow-up. There's never any like long-term contract that you can have with a faction, or it's like, oh, you finished a contract, here, sign me up with another one, so you can have a proper campaign situation. But even more ridiculous on this entire subject is you have a campaign situation where you still have bounties, which can give you a lot of meat and various resources, including money. And then you have his mercenary contracts. I think the entire bounty system of the ogres is pretty crap, to be quite honest with you. But when you look at these contracts, just consider what you're dealing with over here. You get money and you get meat. And the more you play through the campaign, the worse it gets in terms of how much resources you have. You can have infinite money and infinite meat, which translates into infinite armies and infinite ogre camps. On top of that, when you take a contract from a faction, you get the ability of teleporting once to the faction that has given you said contract, which means you can traverse the map. And since he's a mercenary, climate is not necessarily too big of a deal. Yes, he does have uninhabitable things and all that kind of stuff, including Wolfone, interestingly enough. But all the same, he can get confederations with both Croesus and Scrag by just literally teleporting to them, to the leaders, beating them up, beating their army, and using the Ogre Confederation system, and get a ridiculous level of power. So you're kind of just ping-ponging around the campaign map, beating the crap out of people. It can be fun. I'm not going to say that. Ogres are... I'm not going to say otherwise. It is a great deal of fun, but it's kind of a wasted opportunity from my perspective, because it could have been like a narrative focus or something more dynamic in terms of objectives, as opposed to like, here's a contract, do the contract, you win. That is really the disappointment, if you will, with Omens of Destruction. Lots of cool stuff in Omens of Destruction, undeniably so, but I think Maneater deserved better. Yeah, pretty broken system. At number 2, we have Arbaal the Undefeated. Yes, the downside of this campaign is that if Arbaal is defeated in battle, you might as well give up this campaign. But still, he is ridiculous. He gets a global recruitment, duration, benefit for his army, all kinds of benefits for Chaos Warriors Chosen, Chaos Knights Cult Crusher, etc. Devastating Flanker for Chaos Knights, which means that Chaos Knights of Khorne under him are actually better than Slaaneshi Cavalry, which is saying a lot, by the way, considering how good Slaaneshi Cavalry is. But here's where Arbaal is broken. All the things he has, and all the things inherently that Khorne factions have, like the Skull Throne and all that, those are obviously very powerful. But where Arbaal is broken is with the challenges of Khorne. Now, I think the idea of having enemies to fight and rewards for those enemies is fun, but then you kind of break the game in a lot of ways. See, a lot of people think that Skulltaker is ridiculous because he can summon blood hosts. So can Arbaal. And that is the insanity of it all. Because here's what Arbaal can do. He's got 2 things right here. Well, 3 things really. You can get campaign movement range for every army. Of course, these require a bunch of Khorne's favor. But importantly, you can summon a cult after completing a challenge. Or a 20% chance of summoning a cult after winning a battle. Which, by the way, cults give you a bunch of benefits, but more importantly, you can summon a blood toast after completing a challenge, and a 20% chance of summoning a blood toast after winning a battle. Any battle, with any army. That is ridiculous. You might, again, people think that Skulltaker is ridiculous because of his blood toast. Let me picture this. You can get there faster as Arbaal. You can traverse the map much faster than Skulltaker, and you're not reliant on just your main army in order to do so, to summon those blood toasts. Like, Skulltaker takes a while to actually get to the blood toast insanity. Arbaal can get it very damn freaking quickly, and it's not even funny what he can do. Like, for instance, if I, want to just switch to this, I can do it on this turn. Or I can teleport using some favor, get like 10 Khorne favor, and then, or 15 even, and then do it after that. So the sheer potential that you have in this campaign in terms of annihilating everyone that stands in your path is ridiculous. And even if you don't have challenges or what the game considers to be challengers against you, they will literally spawn armies, rogue armies for you to deal with. And every single one of those rogue armies is considered a challenge. So imagine you have a situation where you have a lot of armies, or a lot of lords picking fights. Then you have a bunch of those rogue armies. You can literally paint the map as Arbaal in a ridiculous way. Seriously, you want to talk about infinite blood toasts? This is your guy. He's absurdly good at it, and God forbid if you actually manage to confederate Scarbrand because of his kind of benefits. So it is a ridiculous campaign situation, and I love it. I love this campaign, but it is pretty broken and busted after a certain point, once you realize that kind of nonsense. And you can do that very damn quickly, too, in a campaign. That's the crazy part about Arbaal the Undefeated. It's not something that takes 10, 20 something turns. No, you can do it from turn 2 or 3, depending on how you manage things. That is why it's ridiculous. And finally, at number 1, we have the Changeling. Absolutely the single most broken campaign in the entire game, and not really a fun one either. I mean, you can say what you will about all the rest of the legendary lords on the list. At least they have some level of a fun campaign, even if it can end up being an intern button simulator. But the Changeling is an intern button simulator from pretty early on. He has invisible armies in locations with a cult, which he can set up very, very easily. So he's difficult to destroy. You need to kill all his armies and remove all his cults. If you're a player, that's one thing. The Changeling AI is not great. But the AI is not quite capable of doing so. Even if they see all your cults, they're not necessarily going to invest the resources to remove them. I think the AI can, is just really bad at managing its resources. On top of that, he has armies of Tangors and Forsaken of Tzeentch that can do very, very well in auto-resolve because of their durability as units, and because, well, Forsaken of Tzeentch are just ridiculous. Then you get Chaos Warriors of Tzeentch and Chosen of Tzeentch later on, so even more ridiculous nonsense. And on top of that, you get 10% casualty replenishment after turn 1 through Way of the Trickster. I think Kairos wishes he had that level of power. Would be nice. But here's the thing. While all of those things are pretty strong, what's broken about the Changeling is his schemes and the kind of benefits he gets from those schemes. He can set up portals, rifts across the map to teleport across the entire map. So even if you're at war with half the world, as long as you can set up a cult in some nice little corner, you're going to be pretty safe. Let alone the fact that the Changeling has ways of managing his diplomacy with various factions, like Court of Whispers. Again, extra level of power. And you can get more benefits. Things like casualty replenishment, 10% faction-wide by just defeating Festus. Ward save for all characters in a campaign. Or if we look at Norska, Winds of Magic, deadly equipment, so extra armor for your units. It ends up being pretty damn ridiculous in a campaign what he ends up having. And that is why the Changeling is such a completely broken campaign to play as. Not a great one, far from it. But that's all. Costin signing out, and I'll see you on the next one.